Within some DAO maximalist communities that, let's say, border on cults, there is this almost spiritual notion that, like, if we can run everything on a DAO, then we will have true transparency, and everyone working at every level will have true access to the information, the understanding of integration of what our work is moving towards. And there's this almost like spiritual alignment notion, right? That we can all truly work together in these trustless systems. I guess I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, right? There's like the practical implementation of it, like what do people actually do? But do you think that there is anything to these systems where everything is transparent? And so fundamentally people's behavior changes because of the cultural change that the institution creates?
I think it works for a narrow degree of people, but I don't think it works for most people. Consider there's a broad degree of sociological profiles across humans and ideological profiles across humans, and kibbutzes work. Like socialism can work, right? But those are opt-in communities, right? Where they work because the people who were in them opted into them. Where kibbutzes begin to fall apart, so for people who aren't familiar, in Israel, there was this thing where people started these little socialist communes called kibbutzes, and they were very, very efficient. A number of them did very well. They actually became one of their downfalls that they so economically outcompeted the industries that they were in that they reached points in which the shares in them that everyone living in the socialist paradise owned were worth so much that it actually just made sense to sell your shares and then just not work for the rest of your life. And so then they became corporations because people sold their shares in them. But where the kibbutzes really fell apart was intergenerationally, because then within the next generation, these people hadn't chosen to be born in a kibbutz, you know? And so because it was no longer, you know, filtering in that way. So I do think that you can have DAO systems that can outcompete existing systems through the intangible benefits of trustlessness. But I think that they only work when they draw in people and they only reward people, because not everyone is rewarded by that. You know, a lot of people aren't, right? But they work when they act as filters that draw these people in. And here's where it gets interesting. We're actually the most efficient form of a DAO infrastructure, if you really want to utilize this aspect of it, is a DAO that operates a religion, or like a cult that.
This is exactly where I wanted to go next.
Well, that's what you call a young religion, right? So
yeah.
You then have everybody who is, so you can have many sub-governing systems operating inside of this, many companies operating under the wider cult. You own cult tokens. I mean, is that not what Ethereum is, I suppose? Right? Where it's many sub. But what's interesting is when you then try to build the governance token of the cult to have the ethical utility of the average participant in the cult, right? So essentially you would have tokens that could be traded, like a crypto token within this community that could be like a currency, but this currency could like automatically devalue if it was used for things that did not align with the normative ethics of the community. Now, in many ways, this would be the antithesis of the future that I think most people in crypto would want, which gives the governing structure, the cult, even more control over their money and their daily life. But you know, in many ways, this is sort of what some crypto. So right now we're on the Stewards Council like board thing of Gitcoin, right? And you could say this is one of the experiments within the Web3 community to create like ethical currency, right? Like a currency that its use promotes an ethical vision, nonprofit work, stuff like that, right? Like that's really cool. I like that. But I think it might make sense to just dispense with the formality and literally build it. Now, it's important to remember that when you create a cult, you don't need a theology. You can create a secular cult. What you're creating is a normative set of ethics and a belief about how morality and the universe is structured, and saying that that is encoded into the way we are socially engaging with each other, so long as we are engaging under this framework. And that framework could be, you know, utilized as control, because, you know, the system has no power if it can't utilize control through tokens that individuals within the cult have. That are differential, and its value system, could be imposed by devaluing tokens of individuals that are not using them in ways the cult would want.